מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, פינות דשת ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינחלוני. נפשי יושבב, ינחני וגם לצדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צלמוות, לא אירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צוררי, תשענת בהשם את ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחצי רדיפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Psalm 23 that I just chanted in Hebrew. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green meadows. He leads me beside refreshing streams. He restores my life. He guides me by brightest paths. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no harm, for he is with me. The staff and the rod, they comfort me. The Lord spreads a feast for me in the presence of my foes. He spreads anointed oil over my head. My cup overflows. Only goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the cycle of life, our sages and our rabbis describe the time for everything, and there is a time for everything. As time progresses, we write our own book of life. Obviously, when we're young, it's the beginning. When we get to our middle age, it's the middle of the book, and then from then on. And as time progresses and we mature, it gives us time to ponder and to stop to see what page are we on? Where are we on? Do we like where we are on? Is there something we can change to improve as the time progresses? At times like these, it gives us a chance to stop and reflect and think. And you're going to hear about this man who left us with a tremendous legacy. And this is a good time to ask, are we comfortable in the book that we're in? Is there something we can do to change? Can we use some of the example of this man to try to improve how we live and what we do on this earth? It gives us a time for reflection. We are here today to say farewell to Irvin Garfinkel, Yitzchak ben Nissan Berezel. Father Teresa married to Jerry Webb. To Harvey married to Lee Garfinkel. He was predeceased by his parents, Nathan and Rose, and his wife, and I was told his absolutely best friend, Shirley. She passed away in February of this year. He passed away at the age of 94 on Friday, August the 16th, which is the equivalent Hebrew date of the 15th day of the month of Av in the year 5779. We are told by our elders and rabbis that giving a eulogy at this time is considered one of the highest mitzvahs that anybody can do. And the reason for that is very simple. the person that we are eulogizing is not here to thank us. So it's an act totally not selfish. So we're very fortunate. There are a number of members of Irvin family that have agreed to share their memories with us, and we'll see the example of what I talked about before. So I'd like to invite the members of the family to all come up at this time. And those who speak, they come up here, and those who don't can sit at the back with me. So please come on up. There's water here and Kleenex and a mic so you can be heard. I see the tallest member is coming up first. Go right ahead.
He's my little brother.
I know.
Hi, here we are again. I'm Risa, Irv's daughter, and beside me is my little brother, Harvey, who you'll also hear from in a moment. As you all know, we very recently stood before you eulogizing my mom, Shirley, and noted how my mom and dad were inseparable. So now they're together again, and we're here now to pay tribute to our wonderful father, Irv. Before doing so, I'd like to thank you all for being here with us to honor my dad, especially those of you that came in on a moment's notice from out of town. And of course, that includes those of you that came in from the beach. Harvey and I appreciate the support you have all given us. It truly helps ease the pain. The stories you've shared have lifted our spirits. It's an honor for us to speak about our dad and share some of our wonderful memories with all of you. From your stories, I know my dad meant a lot to each of you, but please know that you each meant so much to him. He was a quiet person, but so kind and loving, and such a good soul. Everyone's needs always came before his, particularly my mom's. He was so devoted to her. They enjoyed 70 years together, doting on one another. Our dad was the epitome of a perfect husband, father, Zeta, and as Harley called him, Super Zeta, providing wisdom and guidance to his children and unconditional love and lots of fun to his grandchildren and his great-grandchild. He treated his nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and nephews as if they were his own, and was selfless with his time with them. All of the grandchildren, nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and nephews have shared so many of their wonderful memories of my dad, playing with them and entertaining them. In fact, one of his great-nephews mentioned to me that his most memorable days growing up were his visits to Winnipeg to see Auntie Shirley, Uncle Irv, Auntie Sarah, and Uncle Dave. The four of them were quite the team. And now that they're reunited, I'm sure that my mom and aunt are splitting a meal for lunch, and my dad and my Uncle Dave are strategizing on how they're going to get the bill. One of my most memorable childhood events were our Saturday morning trips to Woolworths. My dad took us every Saturday morning. For years, I believed my cousins used to fight to sleep over at our place Friday night because I was so much fun to play with. As I grew up, I realized that Woolworths was the draw, not me. And my dad, of course, who made it so much fun for any of my friends and cousins. I have lots more stories, but of course, Harvey is a better speaker than I, so I'm going to let him share a little bit and then I'll close.
I can't speak much better than that, but yeah. Thank you. So Dad always had a really good sense of timing, right to the end. There's a few things. First of all, it's his dad's yahrzeit today, actually, I believe. And he passed away on Tu B'Av, which some people call the Jewish Valentine's Day, right? And I think he just wanted to be with Mom. It was also my Uncle Dave Columbia's yahrzeit just a few days ago, and Auntie Sarah's the week before. And as Risa said, they were a team. They did just about everything together. And I'd like to believe that he wanted to be with them, that he wanted to get together with them at Sal's, and that they're probably arguing over the bill right now as we speak, which they always did. My dad was a businessman, and he worked very hard. I wasn't around for the early days of when they first started out, but from what I understand, he and Uncle Dave worked like 5 in the morning. They come home at 9 o'clock at night or later, and when they were starting the business, and they worked really hard. I was lucky because by the time I came around, they were more settled in, and there was more time for us, I guess. But it paid off. They were very, very successful, and he retired very young. I think he was 48, if I'm not mistaken. And he was always a well-liked guy and respected in business and people he knew. There's so many people that I've met that have talked to me about my dad and how well-liked he was and how respected he was. But he was a humble guy. He never, ever really said much about his success. And he also helped out a lot of other people without much fanfare, without saying anything about it. And he was that's just the way he was. He was very humble about things. My personal memories as a kid, it's the small things that really count. And I can just remember playing catch with him outside, making time for me to play catch outdoors, or wrestling with me when I was little, and foot fights and all those things that really, as a kid, that's the memories I have. I remember going with him to the plant on weekends because he would always go in to work and look over things and take orders and things like that on the weekends. I remember going with him to the plant all the time, accompanying him, and I would do stuff there and he'd be working away, or we go to Eaton's. Eaton's at the time had a big meat counter downstairs, and we'd always go there to meet the meat manager and take orders, and I would kind of tag along with him, and those are fond memories for me. In my view, he was a very patient man. He wasn't always so patient. He couldn't wait for things a lot of the time, or he'd get upset if somebody wasn't doing things the way they should or when they should, but he was always very patient with me. And that was important because I was kind of the perpetual teenager. I'm still kind of that way. And he had a lot of patience for that and putting up with me and all the different adventures. And, even from teaching me how to drive, he was always patient to putting up with all my different adventures in my growing up. And that was really important to me. My dad was great with kids. He loved kids. And he really had a way with them, and he just connected with them in ways that a lot of people didn't, but he was always loving to them, and it was great with our kids and the grandkids and everybody else. And he was very caring, a very caring person. And those two, I'm thinking of a story that Lee always tells, and I think she really so appreciated it. It's kind of a combination of his love for kids and his caring. When Alex was born, Alex is 6'5"? I don't know. He's big. He's huge now. I can't believe how big he is. But I can still picture him. I can feel him in my arms as I was holding him in our house, our little house at the time. And he was very colicky. He was always cranky and colicky. He was keeping us up nights. And I was away, and Lee was home alone with him. And he had one of those episodes where he was really colicky. And she couldn't do anything to settle him down. And my parents phoned right at that time and asked, how are things going? Anything we can do? And she said, no, everything's going just fine, right? And she was really at her end. And not 10 minutes later, she saw him drive up in front of the house. And of course, in his regular way that he had with kids, he took Alex and settled him down right away. And I think Lee has appreciated that for all our lives since. And it's just very typical of the kind of thing that he would do and the way he was able to do things. So I was at yesterday's service here, and there was a bar mitzvah. And Sam, I can't even remember the name now, but he said something in his speech. The bar mitzvah boy said something. He was talking about being positive, and being positive in the face of challenging circumstances. And this particular boy had some very challenging circumstances, and how having the support of others around them, of people that care for them and real people, was so important. And I just wanted to say to all of you that we all really appreciate the support of everybody who's shown up to support us, and we really appreciate that. I just wanted to say a couple of thank yous to some people. Dad's care staff, they're incredible. They've looked after my mom and dad for about 2 years now, and Elena, Trina, Nancy, Rowena, there were others that helped out. We were very, very, very lucky to have them. They were just wonderful with my parents and really supportive. My parents' doctor, Wayne Manishin, he's always been very caring and always had a caring and calm guidance and support with us, and really helped us through and helped deal with things and helped my parents. I also want to thank all the friends and family who've kept in touch with my dad and visited and come to see him. He really appreciated that. He really enjoyed that. And it was really great that you were supporting him and supporting us. And that's part of being positive. That's a positive support group that boy was talking about yesterday. And it's really been wonderful. So thank you all.
So before closing, I'd also like to pay... Sorry.
That's okay. You're good.
I'd also like to pay special tribute to my dad's caregivers. They were so devoted to my dad, and you know he knew it. I'd be there, and he'd look at them to see what he should be doing, not me. And he appreciated them so much. Being in another city, I, in particular, could rest easy knowing that my dad was in such capable hands. Harvey and I relied on you all, as we would family, and we hope you'll stay in touch with us. You made my dad's latter years so enjoyable for him. And I also want to give a special shout out to Dr. Manishin, who guided us so capably and lovingly through the last few days. Thank you, Dad, for giving us such a wonderful life. You worked hard to do that, and we truly appreciate it. You were such a great role model for all of us. We're determined to continue in your footsteps as kind, humble, and loving individuals. As my cousin put it, we are now pushed to the front of the line, and we will ensure that your legacy continues forward. And now the grandkids are going to say a few words.
Hi, we're the grandkids. I'm Ava, and Alana, and Alex, and Max, and Elkie and Harley, the great-grandchild. Not a lot of people are lucky enough to have Zetas until they're adults. I imagine that even fewer are lucky to have a Zeta like ours. My Zeta was a kind, understanding, compassionate man with endless patience for our shenanigans, and there was a lot of shenanigans that he endured on our behalf. He was a constant champion of all of our hobbies and interests. When I was a teenager and would spend all of my time hiding away reading books, Zeta would frequently lure me outside with visits to bookstores, signings, movie adaptations. He was my voice of reason in bookstores, and he was my movie theater companion, even if he usually ended up falling asleep during the movie. When Max started collecting chickens at an alarming rate, he was always careful to remember their names and ask after them. When Alex took an interest in comic books, Zeta started taking him to comic book stores on the weekends.
Our Zeta was such a wonderful man, the true definition of a mensch. Zeta was everyone's shul buddy. He was all of our most reliable source on the Blue Bombers. We all remember reading books, everyone curled together on the couch when we were little, or playing the marble game. Everybody sprawled out on the floor over and over and over again. And most recently, he would cheer on the trains as they passed by at the Shaftesbury with Harley, or Chaim Moshe, as he liked to call him. He was such a great Zeta and such a wonderful super Zeta to Harley. He really was the true definition of a super Zeta.
Our Zeta soaked up the joy in life and provided it back. He was always smiling, and he'd always have a jolly tune, whether it was whistling through his teeth or leading the Seder and adding in Yiddish songs. And when our Baba would correct him, he wouldn't ever get irritated. He would look at her lovingly and chuckle, and then continue on. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone here who doesn't have a story that starts with, "One of my best memories was when Zeta, Uncle Irv, he delighted all. One of my best memories is going golfing with the boys at Glendale. By golfing, I mean him and Marshall fishing for balls while I excitedly drove around the golf cart. I will always aspire to be as loving and selfless as he was."
When we were little, he would take us over to the balcony and lift us up so we could watch for boats on the river with him. There weren't always boats that happened to be passing by, so Zeta would hold us by the window for quite some time until we saw one. His arms must have been very tired from holding us squirming kids for so long, but he never complained.
Zeta, you have impacted our lives in so many ways. You shaped who we are and influenced us all so greatly. So for you, your wisdom, your generosity, your compassion, your strength, and your love, thank you. Thank you so much. We are so glad that you are back with Baba now. We love you, and I know we will miss you every day of our lives.
I also have to say that I do remember him for many things, but one particular one. His mobility was starting to be challenged, and yet here he was, while he was still able to do it, with the walker, but still able to drive. Saturday mornings, who did he bring? Someone who couldn't drive, also in a walker. And they would show up, the two of them, and I remember him saying, "Well, we're not the dynamic duo, but we manage." He was an incredible guy. He really was. Going before that, when we needed someone to help us out with Minyan during the week, he'd say, "Call me," and if I did and he could, he was here in a flash. I did not know the extent of how much good he did, not just the things that I saw, but the things that I did not see. And it reminded me of a rabbinic story that I heard many years ago before I came to Canada in Europe. And it goes to a story of a little shtetl. Many of the little shtetls in Europe have stories like this, and I'm sure this one resonated with many. And here was the rabbinic discussion about two men in this little shtetl. One man was the epitome of an observant, traditional Jew, dressed in the proper attire, going to synagogue every morning, putting on tallis and tefillin, going to synagogue in the afternoon and evening, studying Torah as often as he could, being as pious and literal to our faith as possible. Example 1. Example 2. Someone who may not be as traditionally dressed, attended synagogue when he could, observed Shabbat as much as he could, but if anybody in that shtetl needed something, he was the first one there. And the rabbinic discussion with all kinds of Talmudic research and Torah research they could find was the question, which one of those was the better Jew? And after much discussion, the elders and the experts and the rabbis came to the same conclusion. The gentleman who helped out at the first question earned in a Yiddish shtetl the title of a Gitter Yid. The other one was an observant Jew, very much appreciated, but the Gitter Yid earned the title. Well, we've just heard the example of a Gitter Yid. So wouldn't it be neat, over and above what the family said, that they are going to keep on striving to be the person that he was, that we take away from this some lessons so we can put those pages in our book of life and see how much we can improve based on the example we've just heard. It is traditional to recite the El Malei Rachamim. And as many of you know, Rabbi Green is in town this past week and next week as well. He always called the El Malei Rachamim the phone call to the soul because it includes the name both in Hebrew and in English. So we chant the El Malei Rachamim, and if you are comfortable doing so, we ask you to rise while we chant this memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה הנכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במחלות קדושים ודקורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזכירים, את נשמת יצחק בן ניסן ורזל, שהלך לעולמו. בגנית מנוחתו, אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירך בצדק כנופך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החם את נשמתו, אדוני חונך נחלתו, וינוח בשלום משכבו, ונאמר אמן. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Irvin Garfinkel, Yitzchak ben Nisan Berezel, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Following the interment at the Sheretz Tzedek Cemetery, which is located on the corner of Armstrong and Main, everyone is invited to the Shaftesbury, 905 Shaftesbury, I think it's Boulevard, for a gathering in honor of Irvin, where you can continue to share the stories, that some of which we've heard today and others that you would like to share. Shiva will be held also at the Shaftesbury on Monday and Tuesday evening from 7 to 8:30 with prayers beginning at 7 o'clock. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So tonight, Monday and Tuesday at 7 in the evening for prayers, and then 8:30 so you can share some more stories at the time. At this time, I'd like to ask the pallbearers and the family to proceed to their transportation. Please go right ahead. And while they're doing so, let me just update you with some things. For those of you who are going to follow the procession to the cemetery on Armstrong and Main, a couple of things. Make sure that you have your flashing lights on all the way. And this is the most important part. Please observe all traffic lights. We no longer get a pass-through. We will wait at the cemetery until everybody gets there. So please don't rush at all when you do that. When we return to the Shaftesbury for the gathering in honor of Irvin, there is something I'd like to all of us to remember and to help us do. It is customary to make sure that when the family gets there, that we offer them a seat, maybe some coffee and something to eat. And after they've been refreshed, then we can pass on our condolences. I've seen situations where the family has been standing there, everybody passes on their condolences for quite a while, and they haven't got a chance to sit down and maybe have something to eat or drink. So make sure that that's taken off first, and of course then afterwards pass on your condolences. So in a moment, the doors at the back will be opened, and I'd like to invite you then to form two lines honoring the final farewell of Yitzchak ben Nissan Berezel. And while I have a moment here, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and honoring his memory, especially those of you who came from out of town to honor as well. I know his son said that he wants to thank everybody who came from out of town, reminding us that he's also from Grosse Isle, which is slightly out of town, and he mentioned his dad put up with that as well. But having said that, you know, when you think of someone like him with the memories that he's left, you can't help but put a smile on your face. He left us all with fantastic memories of a wonderful human being. So thank you very much, and in a moment the back doors will be opened.